And the broadcast is live. Phil Tarrant, Momentum Media, Tom Panos, Real Estate Jim. I didn't realize, Tom, I know you're a pretty important man in real estate, but you're a proper property celebrity these days. You're on the block in a couple of weeks' time. What's happening?
Well, we're on the block this week. The block is being filmed on Saturday night. Sorry, the block is being filmed on Saturday, and we've got to sign confidentiality agreements on what actually happens on the Saturday. And then on Sunday night, they do the finale. That is the auction to see who the winner of the block is. It's been going for a few months now. And there's 5 different auctioneers, there's 5 different real estate companies, and there's 5 vendors, 5 properties. And the one that I'm doing is for Luke and Josh, the 2 boys from Sydney, in actually not far from where you live, out north. 2 twin brothers, and I've got to tell you,
aren't they just twin brothers, Tom?
Yes, sorry, twin brothers. Yes, sorry.
They're brothers then.
Yes,
sorry, mate. I can't help myself.
Sorry. No, that's correct.
I am listening.
No, that's correct. Yes.
I am listening.
Correct. Luke and Josh. And I really, listen, I mean, it's a big deal for me to go there because at the moment, Phil, I'm doing 25 auctions a weekend, and I'm leaving there to go do 1 auction, you know. But I've got an emotional reason to do it, and their dad's quite. He's not an older dad. He's quite young. He's got a terrible illness. I think it's the illness that comes from asbestos, and you know, he's. It's been a very, you know, life is hard. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And you know, as soon as I met up with them and I had dinner with them one night. And Phil, as soon as they told me the story, I sort of said, "Yeah, listen, mate, let's do it." Little did I know at the time, but Phil, that man, there'd be a lot of complications. One of them is that I'm letting down a fair few of my clients here in Sydney. The second one is, man, the quarantine issue, but that's gone away. Thank God. It only happened last week. I mean, I would have had to have quarantined in Melbourne at a hotel. Which, I mean, it's not what I'd want to be doing, you know. Yeah,
that's cool. So, well, that's a nice backstory to, I guess, give you a bit more purpose to doing the auction. But the idea is that they say this is the reserve, and someone works out what that is, and then anything over the reserve, that fat on top of it, is what determines whether or not you're the winner. So it's the most over a reserve. Is it an absolute number, or is it a percentage of the reserve? How does it work?
I don't know. But at a high level.
Let me reframe that question, Tom. Are you going to win?
Yeah. Well, Sport Odds say no, because someone sent me a screenshot. Yeah, someone sent me a screenshot of it, and Sport Odds haven't got it up there. But you know, then again, like, I've been in real estate long enough to know that, Phil, a property is worth not what the punters say, but what the buyer says. A property is worth not what a valuer says, it's what the buyer says. So I've just got to hope that there's a buyer that sees the incredible work that these guys have done in it, and that person is emotionally connected, and that person turns around and says, I will buy it no matter what it takes. They're the kind of buyers you want in real estate. And I've got to tell you, Phil, they're still out there all week. I auctioned last night. I auctioned the night before. I'm auctioning tonight. I'm even auctioning on Saturday online from Melbourne. I'm auctioning on Sunday when I fly back from Melbourne. The stock levels are through the roof, Phil. They are through the roof. But I've got to say to you, without putting tickets on myself, I suggest everyone Google Tom Panos Daily Telegraph and read the article that I put out there 3 months ago. So every month, part of my commitment is I've got to provide content to News Corp that goes across all its publications. And I put on an article saying that it's booming now, but if you're a buyer, don't despair. In the month of November and December, you are going to be having happy pickings. It's going to be like you're going into a lollipop shop and you're not going to know what to pick from. And guess what, Phil? I was spot on. That's exactly what has happened. Unprecedented stock levels.
Yeah, the real estate oracle is maybe the new name for you, Tom. You know what's happening. You telegraph it, and you are a property investor yourself, mate.
Phil, I reckon it's got to do. I got an advantage. I think that I'm actually closer to the pulse than the analysts, and the
Well, you
reason
have to
why,
be.
mate, I can see a buyer say to me, "Tell him to get stuffed. I'm not going to go. I'm not getting carried away with this, man. Stuff it." I'm the one that can actually feel the temperature where people are saying, "I'm fed up with these prices. I'm walking away." That's only quantified months later in data, right? So I can see it, and I can also tell you to everyone out there that is saying, "Hey, man, listen, the boom's over. There's a real estate crash that's coming, Phil. This is the new trending topic. The party's over. Oh, Tommy, did you see what the Governor General said? Inflation's through the roof. APRA, clearance rates are dropping." I've got to say to you, this is a short-lived thing, Phil, because all we're doing now is going through high levels of stock that have hit the market at the one time. And I can tell you, if there was 20,000 of these things they were trying to sell, I can tell you they're going to go cheaper than if there's only one of these they're trying to sell, right? So at the end of the day, it's purely a demand supply thing, bit of residual stock. It's going to end up being on the market late December. Happy bargain buying for a few buyers who aren't going to go to Westfield but are going to be looking at property right up until the 18th of December. Then you turn around and you say, come back in the new year, January, man, we're back into a real estate marketplace that has got the lowest interest rates in living memory, Phil. So even if rates were to go up, mate, these things about, if they go up 0.1% or 0.2%, mate, you can get them to go up 2%. You have still got rates at 4.5%, which is nothing. I listed and sold real estate for most of my life, Phil. Most of my life in real estate, I was selling real estate at interest rates at a minimum of 5%. So as far as I'm concerned, there have been times it's been 17%, 1989, 17%, 17. So this thing about rates going up, well, hello, what's happened? You've had an ice cream truck, coming around the street giving you free ice cream for 2 years, and now they're going to say, we're going to charge you 20 cents. Well, whoopee-doo. That's my view.
So for our younger listeners and viewers there, you've just had an economics lesson, a real estate lesson from the great Tom Panos. The first one was supply and demand, which was, I've got 2 packets here of low-carb snacks. If there's only one of them, there's less to go around, and therefore they're more expensive, supply and demand. And the other one was the cost of money and the relevance of the cost of money. And, paying a 20 cents extra for your ice cream when you probably should be paying 40 cents more, you're still ahead of the game. It's pretty simple, pretty smart.
I heard during lockdown, I was sitting picking up a coffee from Neil Park Cafe, and I heard one guy say to another guy, mate, have you seen the price of cocaine? That's gone through the roof. And the other guy says, it doesn't surprise me. He goes, you can't get it into the country. There's not much of it, right? Obviously, there were less flights flying in, right? So it's a business principle that applies to every commodity there is there, Phil. I mean, it doesn't take rocket science to work it out. And if you can understand this principle, it will always help you in life and business. For example, mate, you'd go pick an area that's got limited supply of land, not lots of supply of land. You'd go buy an apartment that's an Art Deco apartment that they don't reproduce anymore, and not necessarily buy a brand new apartment that they can build another 1,000 across the road next year. This is sort of basic stuff that you can turn around and you think about things like this. We're going to see this, Phil. We see it in the labor force. When you start having, a shortage of employees, which we are seeing at the moment in certain industries, you see salaries go up.
Yeah, and to your point, Tom, real estate is not difficult. And I'm a property investor. You're a property investor. A lot of property investors tune into this, or at least people that support property investors. Those people that over-engineer and overcook and overcomplicate real estate typically are up to something they don't understand themselves. There's something they're hiding. Real estate is really easy. If you want to succeed in real estate, you've just spelled that out. Exactly. Who are you up against, Tom, at the block? Who are the other auctioneers? Do you know?
I know one of them is a guy called, a very nice guy. Sent me David Woods is a guy. I'm just going to bring him up. Goes to show this. So I get a text message from a guy yesterday. I think it's David Woods is his name. Let me see if it comes up. I can't find it. I think it was David Woods from Bill Property, and he said to me, "I noticed that you're doing the block, and I'm in Melbourne. Give me a ring if there's anything I can help you with. Give you up to speed with things," which I thought was really nice.
That's classy.
McGrath's, the guy from McGrath's, Scott Kennedy Green, who's a mate of mine. Damien Cooley, of course.
I was going to say they're going to have to get Damien. He's always there. He likes the camera.
Actually, he's not there. I'm looking at the list now. No, he's not there.
Because he's Damien's a good auctioneer, very good operator.
Good auctioneer, very good auctioneer. Cooley Auctions, David. So David Wood, I think a guy called Lee Hallow. Listen, I'm sure they're all good auctioneers. For the record, let me tell you the whole thing about auctioneers, but Phil, I've got a different view. Maybe it's because it's only 5% of my life, right? It's a small part of, let's call it the Tom Panos business model, right? I personally think that the time is coming that the New South Wales model takes a leaf out of Victorian model. And in Victoria, the real estate agents themselves do the auctions. So when you list a property, Phil, what happens is the agent frequently, most oftenly, is the person that will also be the auctioneer. I've been supportive of that model, even though on the surface it looks like it's probably not in the favour of someone that does that for part of their life. But I personally think that there are some advantages of having the agent as the auctioneer. Number one, they know the marketplace far better in that area. They live and breathe it. They know more about the product in that area. They've actually worked on the property for the 4 weeks. They've actually built a rapport with the buyers before the auction day. They've actually had all the feedback and intel that's come in on that property, so they know the strengths and weaknesses. So there is a lot of pluses there, Phil, right? There is a few disadvantages, and I think that sometimes you can become emotionally involved when you're both the lister of the property and you're, the auctioneer. For instance, you're about to call an auction. First bid is a ridiculously low bid, and you've been working on that property for 4 weeks, and you just sort of think, where on earth did this bid come from,
it works to be disconnected, no doubt. I get sort of both sides of the argument, and it's like auctioneering. Is this something you're going to do forever, Tom? I know you enjoy doing it, and it takes up time and takes away your weekend. But how long you be an auctioneer for, mate? When are you going to hang up your gavel?
As long as it fits into the model, Phil, which you've heard me say, ELF, effortless, lucrative, and fun. As long as it fits into that model, I'll be doing it. If real estate auctions turned into bingo calling, which some of it is like that, when you're just doing an auction platform, like, for instance, the one where you can't see the buyers, right? And what actually happens is numbers are coming through where they press it on a computer system, and you just say, bidder 37 has made a bid of 1.5. Bidder 21 has just registered a bid. If it goes down that path and that becomes the new model in real estate, for me, that won't be fun, Phil, right? That won't be fun.
What's the funnest outside of this Real Estate Exposed every Thursday at about 1:30? What's the funnest part of your professional life, Tom?
Oh, large keynotes,
Yeah.
because on large keynotes, I don't have to do what I do on one-on-ones. Phil, I have to tell you, they're intense, because I will never ever have a one-on-one where I'll comfort someone with a lie. I will actually hurt their feelings with the truth, because my psychology background and my academic studies clearly show that if you want to create change, transformation, that what you should be doing is actually describing things as they are, not better than they are. Don't sugarcoat them. Call it tough love if you like. Yet in a big scenario where you've got 1,000 people, that's an entertainment show, right? That's a show. You're not talking to one individual person. You're talking to a group of people, be it ARIC or one of the events that you hold. And what that is about, it's entertainment. Whether you like to accept it or not, it's about humor. It's about storytelling. It's about making people feel different in that 1 hour. It's actually something that energizes me and it gives me fun. So I do absolutely love it. But let me preface it and say that if you're looking for change, it can be overrated, because essentially what you're doing is you're one of 1,000 people sitting there watching, let's call it, a more educated version of Netflix is probably the best way to describe it.
You reckon you've got better with age as an entertainer, a business entertainer, I guess you can call it? So I've seen you speak now, Tom, for, well, it's got to be getting on sort of 7 or 8 years. And I still enjoy listening to you, even though I've heard you a number of times. Have you got better, you reckon? What's changed? I know you don't swear as much or at all. You don't swear anymore.
I don't swear anymore. I don't swear anymore because I've got sponsors that I've got to respect their feelings and views. It's also I got out of the habit. Habit's an interesting thing. You stop doing something, you stop doing it, right? It's not a do I think I've got better? Yeah, 100%. And the reason I've got better, I think, is that I don't need the speaking gigs. And when you don't need the speaking gigs, you can actually be of more value because you can actually, and I think that's, I mean, I would, to everyone that's watching this, Phil, I would never ever be working with a coach or a consultant or a trainer that is not financially secure. And the reason why is that they have a vested interest, and that vested interest is they need your money. So they've got this conflict when they're talking to you. On the one hand, they're sort of saying, I want to help this guy. But on the other hand, if I piss them off, you know what? They might leave. They'll get upset. But there comes a time when you don't need their money and you can sit there. And I did this yesterday. I actually said to someone, I said, listen, I think we should just cancel the appointments for the rest of the year. And I think that we should catch up maybe after Australia Day, after you've had to think about it, because the way I see it is that at the end of every call, you say you're going to do this. You send me a text message that you're going to do this. Then when we meet up the following week, you tell me that you had this issue, or you had, this event happen, or you had this circumstance. And I've just noticed that it's excuse after excuse. Maybe I'm not your man. And you can only do that. And let me tell you, Phil, that in itself is coaching, believe it or not. When you actually,
it's also salesmanship, Tom, which you're pretty handy at. But I quite like the analogy or the scenario you use there, because the same around your speaking gigs. The reason why you can do it and do it so well is that you're highly invested into it and you're not commercially reliant on it, and therefore it changes your mindset or your paradigm towards doing it because you want to do it. I imagine the same applies for the best real estate agents as well. If you're, what do you call it, commission breath or whatever, if you're that guy, it means that you're approaching that very differently to the successful real estate agent who can go into that transaction without being desperate for that. You're going to do a much better job.
100%. And the way not to be, by the way, the way not to be desperate in real estate is to ensure that you've kept your pipeline strong. Because, Phil, I just want you to picture this. I'm at your house. I'm sitting there with you and your partner. And you say to me, Tom, mate, we don't have to sell, right? We don't have to sell. We can actually sell in 5 or 6 years. We can actually rent it out, right? And we can sell in 5 or 6 years' time. So just picture me as the agent. I'm an agent that's got another 20 market appraisals to go to in November. I've got a pipeline of sellers coming in, right? And I'll say to you, Phil, if you don't have to sell, you know what? Keep it. You're in a great spot. Keep it. You're in a great spot. What we'll do is let's stay in touch, and maybe in, a year or two, we keep revisiting what the state of the market is. Maybe we can help you with a rental if you'd like. We'd love to help you renting it out if you want to hang on to it and rent it out. And we do that. Picture that. Now, picture this. Picture someone that's broke. Picture someone that hasn't gone to a listing for a month. Picture someone that's got no one in their pipeline. And they sit there and they say, hey, we don't have to sell, but what do you reckon, Tom? Should we? Man, of course. I need to eat, Phil. I'm desperate. I've got no stock. I've got a family that's needing money for school, for our mortgage. Am I going to sit there and say to you, yeah, just keep it, mate. Do it in 5, 6 years? Potentially, but also maybe not, because I've got a conflict there, and that is I need the listing, this commission breath. So, but I've got to, Phil, we could go on. Look, I'm passionate about this subject, because I think a really good advisor has 2 elements, whether you're a salesperson or whether you're a coach. One element is they put the client's interests first. That's the difference between a salesperson and an advisor. And an advisor will put the client's interest first. And the second thing is you've actually got to know, man, you've got to actually have the training. Example, in coaching, I've got to tell you, it is extremely useful, Phil, to have done a postgraduate degree in psychology, because what actually happens is when I'm sitting there talking to someone, there's a great saying, often when someone's got pain in their left hip, the problem might be the right knee, right? That's the skill that you have if you've got some rigorous, robust training to understand, psychology and, cognitive behavior, right? It actually helps to understand psychology versus sitting there and not being able to see what's really the problem is,
Yeah. That's interesting. And, I'm fascinated by psychology. I haven't had any professional training or academic, but
you've got a high EQ. You've got a high EQ. You've got a high EQ.
I'd like to think it's pretty reasonable, and part of that is innate, and part of it is a learned behavior. And I think you get the best EQ just by listening to people, right? And that's a skill as a real estate agent. But it just got me thinking, Tom, around that scenario you painted. We're saying, yeah, just keep it, don't worry about it. I have a scenario for you, and I think our listeners would probably benefit from a debrief on it. It's a personal story. So I'm transacting property. I'm buying a property, and I'm selling a property in the same area, and it's an area of New South Wales. These guys might listen to this, so I won't tell you who they are. But the story is I'm buying a place in an area, and probably about 20 kilometres away, I'm selling a place. Now, the place I'm buying, I was going down a process, and it was right sort of the middle of the negotiation. And I sort of said to this guy, I've got a place down the road. I'm thinking of selling it. Do you want the listing? And he went, yeah, sure, I'll definitely have a look at it. But the backstory of that is it's an investment property, and the market up there where I'm talking about right now is hot. And there was some problems with the property, and the property manager said, Phil, mate, this thing's just going to cost you more money. There's buyers galore at the moment. You should think about shifting this right now. And I went, that's a good idea. hadn't really thought too much about it. Get someone to give me a call. So the principal of this particular real estate agent gave me a call, said, Phil, yeah, happy to take on your listing. This is this will be the commission structure. I reckon we're going to get about this. And that really got me thinking about this selling this property while I was transacting with a different agent on the buy side. So I just went, mate, I'll give you the listing if you want. Let's sort of square this away. So the other agent, who's the one who originally mentioned it to me, sort of called me up going, Phil, are we getting the listing? And I went, mate, I feel really bad. I do feel bad about it. I said, I'm not going to give you the listing because I'm going to give it to this guy over here who is sitting at the sales side at a property I'm transacting on right now. So I've had a good experience with him. I'm going to give him the listing. And he was like, well, what can we do to win your business? What have we done wrong? And this, that, and the other. And I was like, it's got absolutely nothing to do with you guys. If anything, you've sparked the idea in me to actually sell this property. I actually feel bad about giving it to this other guy because you've done some energy and work into it. And he sort of was trying to extrapolate out of me why they didn't secure the listing. And it was purely because of that reason. But I struggled actually telling him that reason why, because I sort of felt bad about it. Like, is there any way that guy you think could have played that differently to have kept that listing with him rather than me giving it to this other guy?
So just to get because I might have missed that important part of that story. Yeah. The guy that you're buying from going to miss out on your listing that you're selling as well?
No, he's going to get it. So the investment property, the property manager did his job. He went, you should think about probably selling this. I'll refer you to a guy, their principal. I spoke to him. He said, sell it. I went, that sounds really good. Leave it with me. And then the guy who I'm buying from over here, I went, oh, this guy wants my listing over here for this particular property. Do you want to have a crack at it? So I've given it to the guy who I'm buying the property from. He's now selling this property for me. The guy whose idea it largely was for me to sell it has lost the listing, and he was wondering why he lost it and how he could have kept it.
Okay. So Phil, you're one of thousands that are in the same scenario every year. In real estate, we call it double headers. A double header is that what happens is the buyer is buying off an agent, and then that agent then gets the benefit of actually selling the property as well. And, why does it happen? I think the fact that you've got one person in the one marketplace is one reason, but probably the main reason is, and listen, a lot of people won't want to admit this in real estate, but I can tell you, if there was a real estate agent that was selling a property and there were two buyers, one buyer had a property to sell in that area as well, and one didn't, there is always going to be a preference from the real estate agent to sell it to the buyer that's got another property to sell. End of story. That's basic economics. You're going to get two commissions, not one. And you're also going to find that there are some advantages, and that is simple things like coordinating settlements to take place at the same time, being able to, once you've got the relationship, like being able, for instance, Phil, you might want to bring tradespeople in, right, to measure up on the new place, that you want to get some curtains, right? Or you want to, get the family to come through and have a second look at it, what have you. It's just going to be a lot easier when you've got this one agent that's doing both properties, right? So I just think the easy thing for you to say is, hey, listen, I'm buying through this guy. There's nothing wrong with you guys. And the truth is, if I was buying through you, you'd be getting it, as well. But having said that, Phil, I got to tell you, the guy that you're buying from mustn't be too bad, because there are lots of instances in real estate that the person that you buy from in the same area doesn't get the listing you sell. That happens all the time as well, because, in real estate, Phil, when you're buying something, you're buying the property. In real estate, when you're selling something, what are you doing? You're buying the agent. Two different things, right? When you're buying, you see the agent once or twice in the process. When you're selling, you see the agent every second day, and they're on the phone every other day, and they're talking to you by FaceTime, and they're coming in physically showing bios. They become part of your life. So I don't think you'd be giving your listing to this agent anyway if you didn't feel comfortable, and the only reason you gave it to him was because you were buying. It's the fact that you're buying which makes it convenient, but you also rate this guy, I think.
Yeah, I had a good dealing with him as a buyer, right? I thought he acted well and ethically, and he tried to represent his vendor as well as he possibly could, and was accommodating to making a transaction happen. And for me, that's sort of pretty pragmatic and businesslike. So I was happy to give him the listing. No worries whatsoever. But I actually felt bad to the other guy for not winning the listing, and that's just the way I'm wired.
Have you told him,
yeah,
Phil?
I told him, and I pretty much said to him what you mentioned. Straight down the line, I told him exactly the reason why, and he was asking me, "What can we do? What can we?" I was like, "Nothing." It's like it's just a fait accompli. But
yeah. Look, I can tell you, I train real
estate
estate agents.
Tom, he didn't ask whether or not it was commission either. He didn't drop his price. He didn't do anything like that. It wasn't like, oh, but I can give you this. He sort of listened to me and he went, okay, well, all right, no worries. So he played it well.
This is a good lesson for our listeners. If they're faced with this scenario, this is the template to handle it if you're the second agent, right? Number one is, I'd say to you, firstly, Phil, can I ask you, have you actually gone off and formalized an authority to sell with the other agent? So step number one is, I want to work out, is there anything I can do? Because if the paperwork has been done, it's done. The referee has blown their whistle, right? We're having a discussion about something that's not savable, right? So that would be step one. Step number two, Phil, if I worked out that you were intending to do it, but you hadn't actually signed an agency agreement yet, I would bring up the scenario and say something along the lines of this. Phil, I understand your situation. In fact, we deal with this every day. And what I can tell you is that you have two choices here. Choice number one is that you go with the one agent and you put everything into that one agent, and you keep your fingers crossed that everything works out and that you get the best price and that it's good. But there's a little bit of risk there. Option number two is that you treat the two things separately. What you do is you want to buy at the best price and you want to sell at the best price. And you want to keep these two things independent, because at the end of the day, what we really care about in real estate is the changeover figure. What I'd like to do is just to have one final conversation with you where I can sit down and explain to you why I actually think your home is 10% better off going with us than with any other agent. And that in this process could mean an extra $300,000. How open-minded would you be to sit down and talk about what we could do to get you a $300,000 better net result in your pocket? I would actually say step number one is find out whether it's solvable. Then step number two, explain how the goal in real estate is to have these two things as separate items, And but it sounds like you're buying and selling, Phil. That's what it sounds like.
Well, they're both investment properties, but yeah, it's buying and selling, similar area. I just thought it was an interesting scenario. So as I mentioned, I felt bad to the other agent, and I'm sure a lot of vendors think that way, right? When you sort of have a relationship with people, so yeah.
Well, if you're the true trusted advisor, Phil, what they would do is they'd say, "Hey, Phil, why don't we actually have a look at on the advantages of actually selling or not selling?" and exhaust that. That's the true trusted advisor sort of saying, hey, let's put that aside, because Phil, one of the things that you need to understand is when you sell a property and an investment property, there's capital gains tax involved, and you might be able to achieve a similar benefit if you want to access funds. Maybe we can just revalue your initial investment property, pull funds out of that, allocate that towards your second purchase that you want to buy, and look at that. But mate, you're a smart guy. I'm sure you've already. You wouldn't be doing this if you hadn't sort of worked out whether it was worth keeping the original property.
I just can't deal with the headaches and maintenance around this particular property. It's only going to get worse. So, maybe one day I'll regret the decision, but it's done what it's needed to do in the portfolio. It's grown a lot. It's probably doubled or more than twice its value from purchase, sort of in 8 years. So, I think we're selling it for about 800 grand, and we bought it for 280 or 300 grand. So, job done.
Well, so that's a good profit. Phil, something for your own interest. Do you know? I have never sold an investment property in my life.
Really?
Never.
This is the first one I've sold. Yeah.
Yeah. I struggle with it. I had a Jewish landlord that I used to look after in my office in Marrickville, Mr. Abaya, his name was, and he said to me, if you've got to sell your home that you live in because you need to move to another area, another city, you need a bigger home, you sell that home and then you buy another home, but don't sell any investment properties. It'll give you a big headache in the future. He said that. He said, don't sell it. I said, oh, what if you need the money? He said, well, he goes, just go to the bank and pull the equity out. You'll be 20% worse. You'll be 20% worse off because they'll only lend you 80% on that investment property, but you're going to actually get out of paying the taxes and the legal fees involved in the buying and selling process. But you've got strong reasons there, and that is that you're a busy man, Phil, that doesn't want to have a property that appears to have had its wear and tear go to a level that it's probably better for someone else to take it on. And
some first homeowner will probably buy it and make it their home. But that was really good counsel. They sounds like a very smart chap who he managing his stuff for, and that's my philosophy towards property investing. Got quite a large portfolio. It's the first property that's sold. And this is an anomaly. I would have held on to it, but I just went, why not?
Phil, I got to share. Can I share the story with Mr. Abaya? Big lesson there. Mr. Abaya walked into our office with a pair of shorts that you'd buy at Lowe's, a pair of those men's slipper type, slippers you'd call them, right?
Yeah.
And a white singlet, right?
Yeah.
And didn't look like he'd showered that day. He looked really messy, right? He walks in with a key and goes, hello. We all look there. He goes, I've got a unit down, I can't remember this, I think it was Francis Street, I've got a unit in Francis Street, Marrickville. I'm not prepared to give a management. I'll give a first week's letting if you rent it out. Here's the key. Are you interested? Right? Anyway, I thought to myself, this guy's, wacko. We're young. We hop in the car. He goes, I'll follow you. He gets into this little red Pulsar. I still remember it, a red beaten up Pulsar. And you know what the story was, Phil? We get to the block of units and he goes, here it is here. And I go, which unit's yours? He says, oh, they're all mine. He goes, it's unit number 7. So I look up and I look at my business partner, George. I said, George, he's got the block here. There was like 45, 50 units in the block. And then we find out at this visit, he owns that other block down there and he owns this other block. And then we work out, we thought, shit, you never judge a book by the cover, Phil. Never. That girl or guy that walks to an auction wearing, Armani clothes, pulls up in the flash car. Often they're sitting there, they've got no money to buy the place, right? You get someone, shorts, bit of a gut hanging out, walks in, you think to yourself, oh, this guy can't buy it. Man, he's the final bidder. You never, ever assume, I'm telling you, never assume in real estate.
Yeah, mate. It's you see it all the time. I find it all very entertaining. It's often the people with the most money don't want to look like they've got any money, right? That's I learned that a long time ago. So.
Yes, very, very true. It's very, very true. And it was one of the things, when I was talking to Gavin Rubenstein before Gavin accepted doing the block, Gavin and I were sitting down having a session together. This is like about a year and a half ago, and he said, "Mate, there's this thing happening here." And he goes, "Tell me your view. Tell me the pros and cons." He goes, "I want you to be the devil here. You tell me the pros and cons." And I said, "Well, let's accept it. One of the issues is that this sounds like it's going to be a flash show. And it's about what I see on $1 Million Listing in America. It sounds like it's something along the lines of that. And let's have a look at it. The 80-year-old older guy that sits in Vaucluse won't be impressed, but the young aspiring executive that's 35 years of age, that's bought something in Rushcutters Bay or Double Bay, will be impressed." So and that's sort of the way it's transpired, that there's a group of people that like to keep things quiet, low key,
Yeah.
and there's another group of people that want the world to know, I'm rich, I have influence, I have power. Where are you, Phil? Sorry
Where
to
am I?
put you on the spot.
Sorry, where am I right now, environmentally or mentally?
No, on the spectrum. On the spectrum.
Oh, mate, you see. Well, I've got no money, so it's
There you go. There you go.
largely
There you go. He's keeping it low profile. I've got no money. There
I've
you
got
go.
no money, mate. I'm a struggling small businessman, Tom. You know that.
I've got.
Yeah, I'm not a flash guy. I still drive. Mate, I've driven the same car for nearly 20 years. Which I've sort of. My wife has a nice car, but I'm happy with just what I got. I'm not a fancy sort of guy. I don't spend much money.
I should write a blog post or shoot a video on my 10 biggest learnings from Mr. Abaya. Great man. He became a management. He was our biggest landlord. He became our biggest landlord. And
how many properties did you manage for him?
150. Right?
That's a lot of property.
150. He was the biggest landlord. And one of the things that came out of it is he ended up becoming a bit like a mentor, because every interaction you'd have, and it's really weird, Phil, a lot of these guys actually love giving you lessons. It's really, they love giving you lessons, right?
How did he make all his money, Tom? How did he make all his money? Was he just property guy, or was he a builder who started young and early and smart with his money?
I don't, off the top of my head, he'd been doing property for a lot of his life up until then. But I think originally he was, I think it was in Surrey Hills in the rag trade, right? And then they got the money out of the rag trade and invested in property, So it was lots of blocks of units. But I mean, when you brought up about the car, he used to say, "Boys, don't spend your money on cars. That's metal that rusts. It goes down in price. Spend your money on land. Spend your money on land." And that's why he had this beaten up red car. I think his name was Mr. Bayaya. He had a red Pulsar. So another lesson he always had is, don't worry about having your being looking better than your next door neighbor, right? He always used to say, don't worry about the neighbours. Don't worry about the neighbours. That's a bit like the Joneses, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, look, you got to march to the beat of your own drum, right? You're typically happier if you're that way. If you're benchmarking yourself perpetually with other people, that's not bad to help align where you want to go in life, but it's a slippery slope, Tom.
I think there's always going to be someone that's got more money. There's always going to be, and there's always going to be someone that's got more money, smarter kids, better looks, funnier. That's life. So if that's the game,
how do you feel about that, Tom? Seeing how one-sided this particular duo is, mate. Better looking, smarter, funnier, professionally better off. Mate, you're making me feel bad.
I'll take that as a comment.
It's the best you're going to get from me, mate.
Yeah. All righty.
Good one, Tom.
Hey,
Hey,
Phil.
quick one. For those who have tuned in all the way through this podcast, we're sort of rambling a bit today, but this is the way we like to do it. The Women in Real Estate Awards, Tom, which you're coming along to. It's in
Sure am.
The 11th of December. I'm going to get in trouble with that. I think it is. Restrictions have changed. In New South Wales, they've brought forward the 2 square metre rules for official events. So there's going to be a new release of tickets. We sold out the Women in Real Estate Awards like about 4 months ago before COVID hit, and it was completely capped out. But I've just been told there's going to be a new release of tickets available. So watch this space. If you want to get involved, get in touch with the team. Best way to do it would be you can call 0299223300. They're going to be hot property, these. I think we can get about another 100 people there because they've changed these restrictions. So 0299223300 or editor@realestatebusiness.com.au. I'll let them know to keep an eye on that stuff, Tom. But just means it's even going to be bigger and better.
Philly, thank you. Looking forward to it. I've just realised that I'm way late for something. So signing off. It's been great chatting. Well, I've been the chatting. You've been doing the listening. Thank you so much.
See you, mate.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.